YouTube! This is Breckie from Breckie Writes, and this is Breckie Reads. This is my March book haul. Okay, so it's my book haul for the month of March, although there are a couple of books that I got in February that I forgot to haul in my last book haul. Also, another thing to note is that this is probably the last really big book haul I'll do for a while. I have lots of books that I own that I really want to read, and I'm the kind of person that likes to have the books on my shelves mostly read, so I am going to focus on reading my owned TBR before I add too many. So the most recent book that I've purchased is the second volume of Lumberjanes. This continues the adventures of this ragtag group of young women in a summer camp called the Lumberjanes. It has really gorgeous artwork, which I think is super fun and kind of reminds me of Adventure Time. This book is all about feminism and friendships and awesomeness. The next most recent purchase is Bitter Kingdom by Carson. This is the third book in the Girl of Fire and Thorns trilogy. Now, I haven't started this trilogy yet, but I do love to marathon books, and so I needed to buy the third one before I could justify beginning the marathoning of the first two. I'm not really sure all the details of what this trilogy is about. One of the things that has been most compelling when I've read some reviews of this trilogy is that the main character is a bigger woman. She is not like your traditional skinny, beautiful princess, that she deals with body issues. I have not seen that trope done well in fantasy, so I'm curious as to how this plays out. The other thing that I'm really excited about this trilogy is that it's really inspired by Hispanic and Latino culture, that is the sort of basis and grounding for the world that Carson builds. I am really excited to read that. I like reading fantasy novels that aren't just your general sort of quasi-medieval Europe, so this should be really interesting, and like I said, as soon as I can, I'll be getting to this trilogy. Okay, this is the book that I purchased with my birthday money at Barnes & Noble in that massive book haul, which I will link in the description in case you're curious, and somehow I forgot to haul it. I don't know how that happened. And that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Now, obviously, I had to buy Six of Crows. I think that this is going to be an awesome book to read. I loved the Grisha trilogy. I know that this is a heist novel with a great ensemble cast, and I need to read it so I don't get spoiled. In addition, this is just a beautiful book. I love this cover. I don't know if you can see that. It's a beautiful cover, but also it has black edging with the paper. Do you guys see that? I think that this is a beautiful book. One of the reasons that I decided to buy it in hardback and not in paperback is because of how truly gorgeous this book is. The next book is Into the Dim by Janet B. Taylor. I have already read this and done a spoiler-free review, so I will link that down in the description for those of you who are interested. This was my TBR Jar Challenge book, and I had to read a book that was released in March, of this month. Into the Dim is a time travel novel that follows 16-year-old Hope Watson after her mother has died, and she is sent to visit an aunt in Scotland and discovers that not only is her mother not dead, but that her family time travels and her mother is stuck in the past, and she must go and rescue her. This was an okay read for me. I didn't super love it, and this was one of my newest purchases. Alright, all the rest of the books going forward were from one massive, huge, ridiculous book outlet buy. The first three books are in a companion series, and they are the Anna and the French Kiss books. This was on super sale. I'm sure those of you who shop at book outlet saw all the notices that these books were in. I did decide to go ahead and purchase them. I have already read Anna and the French Kiss. I will be soon starting Lola and the Boy Next Door, and then at some point reading Isla and the Happily Ever After. These books are all about teenage romance and love stories and take place in different places. Anna and the French Kiss takes place in Paris. Lola and the Boy Next Door takes place in San Francisco, and I think Isla returns back to Paris, but I'm not sure. The next book I got was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I've never read any Rainbow Rowell, and everybody talks about Fangirl. It is everywhere. Now, this was a scratch and dent copy, and it really was scratched. I had to tape it here. You can't see it probably, but there's it looks like nail marks are all over the cover. I don't know. I don't generally like contemporaries. It's just not my jam. I really like epic adventures that take place somewhere other than the world in which I live. But this talks about a girl who writes fan fiction, and when I was in high school, I wrote, but mostly read, a bunch of fan fiction, and so I am really curious. Fangirl! In this massive book outlet haul, I got Shadows Cast by Stars by Knutsson. Now I have already read this. I read it for my Underhyped Reads readathon at the very beginning of March. So I will be linking to the mini reviews that I did for this one and another book down in the description, so you can find it down below. But basically, Shadows Cast by Stars is a dystopian novel in which a plague has ravaged North America and most of the world, I believe, and the only people that can survive this plague are the indigenous population. This was only a 2.5 star read for me. I wanted to love it. There was a lot of good things in here. But yeah, you can get my full review in the Underhyped Reads readathon, link in the description. Starglass by Phoebe North was also one of my Underhyped readathon books. This is sort of a dystopian, futuristic science fiction novel in which the world has been destroyed by an asteroid, but before its destruction, several spaceships were launched, and this follows the life on one of those spaceships that has been carrying the human population for 500 years. So people have been born and had children and died and been buried on the spaceship, right? This spaceship is totally equipped for life, and it follows a 16-year-old Tara as she's trying to negotiate both coming of age, like normal coming of age stuff and angst with parents, but also this crazy world she is thrown into on this spaceship and this life that she's leading, especially as the spaceship nears its destination. Starbreak is the sequel to Starglass. This is also by Phoebe North, and this continues the story of Tara once they reach the planet that they have been heading to and discover that it is inhabited. I'm not going to say any more than that. I have not finished this. I've only gotten started. I just haven't been really in the mood for science fiction, so I've had to put this on pause, but I loved Starglass. The next book from my Massive Book Outlet haul is a cookbook, and that is Vegetarian Times, a fast and easy cookbook. Great food you can make in minutes. Now, I'm a vegetarian and I'm always looking for recipes that are fast and easy and nutritious and don't call for really obscure ingredients like truffle oil or seaweed extract, because I don't have those things and I'm not gonna go spend a ton of money finding those things. I used to subscribe to the Vegetarian Times and had really great experiences making some of the recipes that they recommended, and so this just looks like a bunch of, you know, not super fancy schmancy recipes that I could try and make and have in my repertoire for quick, easy meals. The next book I got from Book Outlet was perhaps one of the ones I was most excited to find, and that is Going Bovine by Libba Bray. Now, I've never read any Libba Bray, but I've heard of this, I think from a book blog that I was following, and essentially this is the story of a 16-year-old boy named Cameron who discovers that he's going to die because he has mad cow disease, and before he dies he's going to turn into a cow. This book feels like it's the kind of thing in the vein of Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, or Lamb by Christopher Moore, and I loved both of those books, so I am really looking forward to Going Bovine, and I will let you guys know how it goes. This just feels like it's gonna be a fun, funny, hilarious read. The next book I got in my Book Outlet haul has no dust jacket. It's called Elias Hook. I will show you the actual dust jacket here, and this book I think is sort of not a retelling of Peter Pan, but a revisiting of Never Never Land. The premise being that an adult, grown woman finds her way to Never Never Land and befriends Captain Hook, and I think it's sort of a redemption love story about her sort of redeeming Hook and them falling in love and kind of what it's like to be adults in a children's fairyland and how all of that works. Alright, the next book that I got in my Book Outlet haul was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. And can we pause to talk about how beautiful this book is? I don't know how well you guys can see the colors, but I generally don't like faces on novels, and yet this I think is just the colors, it's just beautiful. This is like a parchment paper, so it's a beautiful book to hold, and just, it's gorgeous. This is a gorgeous book. Now, in the intimidating TBR pile book tag, I mentioned that this was the single most intimidating book that I have to read because I think it will give me all the emotional feels. This book tells a true story of the last woman executed in Iceland and everything leading up to her trial and during her trial, and how people sort of swing back and forth in deciding whether or not she's innocent or guilty or justified or whatever. And I have heard from people who have read it that it is beautiful, that Hannah Kent's command of language is astounding, particularly since this is her debut novel. I've heard about this on some book podcasts that I listen to, and a couple of other people on BookTube have mentioned reading this and loving it, so I am excited to read it and also nervous, and I suspect this is going to be like a 5 out of 5 on the Kleenex rating scale. The next book that I got was The Book of Speculation by Erika. So this book texts a lot of boxes for me as far as buzzwords go. First of all, the main character Simon is a librarian and he is given a mysterious antique book. When he starts reading this book, he discovers that the book has these really creepily accurate prophecies about how his mother died, how his grandmother died, I think how an aunt died. They all died drowning deaths, and this book seems to detail how it happens. He also discovers there is a drowning death prophecy in store for his sister, who I believe he's estranged from, and he goes on a journey to try to find her and prevent the prophecy he reads about from happening. All right, the next book I picked up from Book Outlet was The Winter Witch by Paula Brackston. I don't really know that much about this novel, except that it's about a woman who, after the death of her husband and being remarried, kind of discovers that she might have some witchy powers, and that it takes place somewhere in maybe the 1800s or 1700s. I don't really know. It has witches, it has a love story, and I was trying to read a little bit more broadly, and this was on super duper sale. So I picked it up. We'll see. I may love it, I may not love it, I'll let you know. Another novel that was in my Underhyped Reads Readathon TBR, but I didn't actually get to, was Against the Darkening Sky. This is by Lauren B. Davis, and this is the story of Wylona, who is a young woman who is pagan and is being trained as a healer, I think, maybe a priestess, in 7th century England, and is affected by the mass conversions to Christianity and how that affects her village, and I think her lover is a Christian and she's a pagan, and they have to negotiate life in a hostile world. All right, the next 3 books are all different retellings of fairy tales, some of which I heard about on the All the Books podcast, which is put out by Book Riot, and essentially I love fairy tales and I love retellings of fairy tales, and I am always game for a new fairy tale retelling, especially if it's Beauty and the Beast, because yeah, I'm Beauty and the Beast trash. The Beauty and the Beast retelling that I picked up this book haul was Rose and the Beast, Fairy Tales Retold by Francesca Leah Block. I think this is a short story collection, I'm not 100% sure. I read all of the Weetsy Bat books in high school and loved them then. Now I haven't read anything by Francesca Leah Block since. I am curious about whether or not I will like these, partially because look at that. Look at how much page is left over. Look at all this blank space. This makes me nervous about this. So I will let you know if it's a good read, but this we'll see. We will see. The next retelling I got was Boy, Snow, Bird by Helen Oyeyemi. I have heard nothing but awesome stuff about this. I've heard really great things about Helen Oyeyemi. She is British but lives in Prague, and I think her family is originally from Nigeria, so she has some really interesting perspectives going on. Boy, Snow, Bird is the story of Snow White, but I think it's told from an Asian culture perspective, I think. And I also believe it's told from the perspective of the evil stepmom character. I'm not sure, but it is a Snow White retelling, and I am really excited, really excited to get around to reading this one. And the last fairy tale retelling that I picked up was Strands of Bronze and Gold by Jane Nickerson. This is a retelling of the Bluebeard fairy tale, and I actually did not know much about the Bluebeard fairy tale. This is just a really gorgeous book. Look at that. Again, I don't really like faces on books, but this works for me. I think that is beautiful. From what I can gather, the Bluebeard fairy tale is that this guy marries all these women and kills them and keeps their bodies locked up, and one of the wives discovers that there's 10 previous wives or something. I don't really know. Because this is a massive book haul and I was also buying books that I thought I would enjoy reading over the summer, I picked up The Good Luck Girls of Shipwreck Lane. This is by Kelly Harms. This just sounds really cute. I don't think this will change my life or my perspective on anything, but this is the kind of sweet, beachy read that I like to have on hand, particularly if I read something really heavy and I want something to kind of recover with. This is the kind of book I think that will be. This tells the stories of 2 different Janine Browns who are told they have won, I think, a year-long stay at a house in Christmas Cove, Maine, and they both arrive on the day they're supposed to get there and discover that there's another Janine Brown. And so the 2 women decide to move in together. Both of them are leaving lives. I think one has a really bad relationship with an ex-boyfriend and one has a bad career or something. And so they move to Christmas Cove, Maine and live together and kind of have antics and shenanigans, and I'm sure there's a love story, and I think that this will just be really fun and really cute and really sweet. And sometimes you just want fun and cute and sweet. And so this is adding to my trying to read fun, cute, sweet books sometimes collection. All right, the next two books are books that I knew nothing about, and I bought them sheerly because they looked interesting, and I still don't really know what the stories are about. And that one of them is Far, Far Away by Tom McNeill. This just sounds interesting from what I've gathered because the blurb is really bizarre and the book is odd, so like see that, but also like this comes off, right? Like, isn't that weird? So this, I believe, is sort of a post-apocalyptic or maybe sort of dystopian-ish book, except that a boy can like channel conversations with the dead Grimm brothers, and there's some kind of supernatural baddie that's affecting his town, and he can channel talking to the dead Grimm brothers. I think that's what this is about. That just sounds interesting. I really don't know. This is one of the ones where I was like, I don't know, it looks interesting, and it's like $2, so I'm gonna buy it. This is probably the closest thing to an impulse buy I have had in a really long time. And the final book in this massive March haul is Salt and Storm by Kendall Culper. This is about a young woman who comes from, I think, a witchy family and wants to take up the mantle of the family witchery, but her mother doesn't want that, wants her to live a proper life. I think that she runs away after having a premonition that she is going to be murdered, and she falls in with a guy that's like a biker with tattoos or something. I'm not really sure, but there's like witches and premonition dreams and Canada. This takes place in Canada, and I am here for Canada. I'm not Canadian at all, but I am here for Canada. So this sounds interesting. Again, this was one of those books I've heard nothing about that I picked up because it sounded kind of interesting on Book Outlet, and I am trying to not just read the super hyped books out there. So I will let you know. Salt and Storm, witches, Canada, premonitions, could be awesome. All right, friends, that was my massive, massive March book haul. Again, don't expect to see any big book hauls. If you see any book hauls at all for the next couple of months, I have a lot to read and a lot to get through and share with all of you. Are any of these books that look interesting to you? I would love to hear your feedback, especially if you've read some of the more obscure books in this haul, because I'm kind of going in blind. Thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!